Welcome to Podiatry Unfiltered. This is the podcast where we skip the sugarcoating and talk honestly about what it takes to survive and thrive as an independent podiatrist today.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Podiatry Unfiltered. This is episode 5. We're going to talk about adding regenerative medicine without losing your soul. If you've listened to the past episodes, we've talked about busy medicine and why busy medicine is broken, why seeing more patients isn't a solution. Today, I want to talk about something specific that has changed how I practice and honestly, how my days feel. And a lot of it has to do with introducing regenerative medicine, specifically things like fat pad restoration. If you would ask me 2 years ago if this is something that would be a standard in our practice for people with IPKs or metatarsal heads that are a little bit more painful, or fat pad atrophy for patients who've had multiple injections of steroid in their foot, in the heel for plantar fasciitis, this stuff works great. And patients who have been through it are happy to have options that are not surgical. It's still a little bit more invasive, but I've done the liposana injections, the fat pad restoration injections for patients. I've done ultrasound before and then ultrasound after, weeks after, and months after. It's very impressive what we're seeing with this particular form of regenerative medicine. I think this topic makes some people nervous. I think why it makes people nervous is because the moment regenerative medicine comes up, I know there are some podiatrists that are thinking, maybe even with a late chuckle, is this hype? Is this ethical? They didn't learn about this in school and residency. Is this turning into sales instead of medicine? Those concerns are valid because we've all seen it done badly. But regenerative medicine itself isn't the problem. Poor patient selection and poor education are the problem. When done correctly, regenerative treatments aren't just chasing trends. They're about filling gaps in care that's been there for a long time. If you really think about it, podiatry is perfectly positioned for regenerative medicine. We treat chronic pain, tissue degeneration, repetitive overload, and conditions that don't always respond to conservative care alone. We also see patients repeatedly because foot pain doesn't just disappear after one visit. Regenerative medicine lives in that space between we tried everything and let's talk about surgery. I wanted to use fat pad restoration as a real world example. Fat pad restoration is one of my favorite examples because it's so tangible. Think about how many people with heel pain that won't resolve, metatarsalgia, pain that's worse, barefoot, or obvious plantar fat pad atrophy. Those patients are coming in with IPKs, prominent metatarsal heads, and they're not diabetic, many of these patients. Insurance doesn't cover shaving calluses. In our practice, we see patients who, if they want a callus trimmed, we charge $100. We take time with the patients. Most of our patients who pay for that service are actually really happy, but I offer them liposana. They're very interested to hear about it. And I will tell you on the first visit, people aren't ecstatic to pay money for something that they wish their insurance paid. But when they add up the paying $100 every 6 weeks to be seen, which I'm delightful, so they like coming to see me. Just kidding. But yeah, those patients, they contemplate it. They go home with some information, and years, our options were pretty limited. Better shoes, inserts we throw an offload on, but that doesn't 100% get it. Lots of times these things are helpful, but they're often not enough. Fat pad restoration addresses the actual tissue deficit. And when combined with some of these other things like orthotics, different footwear guidance, and realistic expectations, it can be a real game changer for the patient. And it's great for your practice to be able to offer care that other practices are not readily doing is pretty incredible. Let me be very clear about what this is not. This is not about pushing procedures. It's not convincing every patient that they need it because they don't, or replacing conservative care. I see patients on a daily basis who I don't want to assume that they do not want to invest in their foot health more than shaving a callus. So while I'm shaving the callus, I will describe to a patient with an IPK who I have seen over the last 10 years multiple times and they're paying me cash for something where I have something in my wheelhouse that can offer them relief for 2+ years. That's that's a game changer for them, like I said before. And patients, you'd be surprised on how many patients are happy that we offer this. I will say, not every patient is a candidate, and that matters too. Patient expectations are important, and patient expectations are important, and regenerative medicine works best when it's presented as an option. Whenever we do anything in the regenerative medicine space, it's an option. It's not a promise. We explain to the patient all of the possible outcomes. Patients really appreciate honesty more than hype, always. And this really does change your practice. So now we're going to talk about the part no one really wants to say out loud. When done ethically, regenerative medicine can really improve your revenue per hour without increasing how many people you're seeing in a day, without increasing that volume. This really does mean fewer patients, longer visits, better conversations. These people, their outcomes are often so much better, but their outcomes are better because you're spending the time with them. You're spending explaining everything. My office visit for liposana is usually 45 minutes. I have the patient pay a deposit because I have to thaw out the liposana graft. So I want to make sure that everything's ready for them. I will often do the class 4 laser on the patient before I do the liposana. And it is a full service visit for this patient. This patient gets the Cadillac treatment. But here's the secret in my practice: every patient gets the Cadillac service because we schedule long appointments for everyone. So everybody has time to talk about all of their options. Something really interesting happens when you practice this way. Doctors slow down, appointments feel purposeful, and burnout starts to lift. And that's not selling out, that's practicing intentionally, which we all need to start doing. I think the thought process, and I will say some of the younger doctors I've talked to in the last couple of weeks, they don't know where to start because they're out, they're seeing 40 people a day, and they don't even know how to incorporate this into their practice. And if they're starting fresh and over after working for someone, I tell them take the time with your patients. One of the biggest mistakes I did when I first started my private practice is, again, that busy mentality. So I didn't care what was on my schedule. Now, if you're a young doctor, you're just starting out. Yes, you want to take some insurances. That's good for building your practice. Get your Medicare. But as far as jamming your schedule, no. If you see a heel pain patient, if you see somebody who's coming in for a painful corn or callus, you're gonna have the time to talk to them about these types of products and these types of modalities, these types of regenerative treatments to make your patients better. So it's worth scheduling that 45-minute appointment. You may actually, if you intentionally build your practice, unlike us old farts out here who are we're actually reinventing or deconstructing our practices to build them back up to being profitable and fulfilling. If you're a younger practitioner, you should be adding these services. I use the Liposana for patients who have painful corns between the toes instead of surgery. Patients love this as an option and they do fantastic. Yeah, spend the time with that hammer toe patient. Spend the time with that patient with fat pad atrophy who's seen every doctor in town, had multiple shots. Nobody's getting them better. This is a really good option. And it's good for you because this is a good option for your patients. It is something insurance doesn't cover. So that's why being able to explain everything to them, explain all their options. Maybe you don't do it on that first. Maybe you don't do that on that first appointment, but you give them information to take home about it, and they come back. And I would say probably like 60% of the patients I've talked to about doing fat pad restoration have come back and had it done sometime within the next 5 months because they do their research, they do their due diligence, they watch some of our videos, they see some of our they see some of our happy patient results, decide they want to do it. They want to make the investment in their feet. I've had 2 patients in the last 2 weeks, and I don't know if it's the January, new year, new me, new feet, but I've had patients who have said stuff like, "This is Brenda's time," and This year, Brenda's working on her feet, and we charge $1,200 for the liposana. So it's worth that 45-minute appointment in your office. You're not going anywhere. And we usually do add or incorporate a custom foot orthotic and the laser. We try to make it as valuable for the patient as possible. So the patient may get a custom foot orthotic with an offload in that area, the liposana injection, and we'll do a couple class 4 lasers, usually 3, over the next month while they're recovering from a liposana injection, and we're following up with them. You're compounding these products together. That when we do the orthotic with the liposana, we usually charge $1,500 and patients are happy. They're really happy. I throw the laser in there for free and the outcomes have been good for the patients. But yeah, again, a lot of people want to say, where do I start? If you're listening to this and thinking, wow, that all sounds great, but I just don't know where to start, I'll give you my advice. Here's my unsolicited advice. Number one, start small. Just do one treatment, one indication, and one protocol. Keep it very simple in the beginning. Learn it well and educate it very clearly to your patients. Have your patients go home with like little treatment protocols so they understand some science behind what's going on and track your outcomes. I will tell you, we track all of our outcomes for a patient with liposana. What I would recommend is having them fill out where their pain was I do the little happy face scale and all the indicators of how they've improved over each visit. And in the beginning, I did 4 visits. Whenever I did a liposana, I did 4 visits over a 4-week period of time, 4 or 5-week period of time. And I would do the injection, offload them. I was super duper like in the very beginning when I did this, everybody went into a surgical shoe with a metatarsal at least a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch offload, where I'd use the metatarsal pad and do the cutout. I'm not as aggressive with it because they do pretty well just offloading with some met pads in their regular shoe. And if I get them into the custom insert with the offload, I'm very confident with that as well. You don't need to become a regenerative medicine clinic overnight. You really just need to stop ignoring options that could genuinely help your patients and yourself. It definitely helps your bottom line. There's no way against that. Patients are looking for regenerative options. Regenerative medicine isn't about chasing the future. It's really about practicing better right now. These things are out there. And if you've been feeling boxed in by volume, schedules, or a system that doesn't have room to breathe, this might be one way for you to really reclaim some control in your practice, but also give your patients phenomenal results. Thanks for listening to Podiatry Unfiltered. Remember, question the system, but you don't have to question your instincts. If you want to add something to your practice that, and again, do it slowly, do it intentionally. And if you do this, what you're going to notice is you're going to gain a lot more confidence in these different types of modalities. I believe regenerative medicine is the future for podiatry. Our profession has always been one where we used to say stuff like, oh my gosh, I love being a podiatrist because patients can come in sometimes feeling terrible and they leave feeling better. But some of those results weren't these long term results. Dumping a steroid into an area where we know it's going to cause issues down the future. And I still do give steroid injections when patients absolutely need some relief and they are not wanting to go the regenerative medicine path. We try to avoid them though. I don't like them that much anymore because I do feel like we can do better in medicine. So if you've liked this episode, feel free to subscribe, whatever it's on. But till next time, I'm Michelle McGowan from Podiatry Unfiltered.